People see you as, strong, accomplished, but where in your life do you feel the most fragile?
Ooh, um,
Ndewono, Ekabo, Sanu, thank you for joining us. Today I have a special friend here who is, I guess I would say my childhood friend. I've known you since what, we were 10. So we've done life together, but not done life together, if there's any way that I can explain it. But I would just say that she's Inezani. She's a brilliant legal mind, a global thinker, yes, but also an awesome childhood friend who has had to navigate love, loss, and then the courage to begin again. So welcome, Ineze. I'm so happy that you are supporting me in doing this and coming on the show.
of course, no better person to have this kind of discussion with than you. There's not a lot of people that are interested in the details and the nuances of the topics that you just pointed out. So definitely looking forward to having this conversation.
Okay. The first thing I ask my guests is, what gives you joy?
I love that question because the list goes on. So for me, I think as humans, generally, growth is one of the things that spurs just some kind of burst of feelings of joy. So just knowing and understanding that I have a growth trajectory always gives me joy. But, for the more, would I say, fun stuff, it's like cycling, dressing up, going out, fine dining, spending time with my people, so many things, right? So I've learned to enjoy and just find joy in the little things. So it's like we go through the day and we go through all of the things that we want to do. Perfect. That gives me joy. And today is one of those days that we even had the time to do this. Pure joy. So for me, it's connections, it's, life, everyday life, and just the hope and the possibility of growth.
Okay. People see you as, strong, accomplished, but where in your life do you feel the most fragile?
Ooh, yeah, to your first qualification, strong. I really wish people didn't see me as strong or I don't come off as strong because that connotes a lot of heaviness. Accomplished, yes, there's still so much to be done, even if I'm coming from such a journey of accomplishments. But where I feel the most fragile, it's just the possibility of tragedy. We can't control that. And just not knowing the future, of course, we don't, no one does. It's kind of unsettling, but also gives me perspective on how to live every day. Just live like if tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And so, yeah, that is such a fragile place for me. And of course, I've dealt with a lot of grief, So for me, just digging into those feelings, super, super, super sensitive areas of life. So yeah, thinking about it, I guess those would be top, just not knowing what is coming tomorrow. Also just, reaching for feelings that are deep and, have cut through, the very existence of who you are, like, dissecting who you are. And we can get into the details of all of that. But yeah, I think there's where I really feel, some fridge. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells here. But yeah.
I know you lost your father some years back, right? And after losing him, did you feel like life gave you time to grieve, or did he expect you to just keep performing?
You will never feel like life is giving because life never pauses for your losses. Unfortunately, it's like the whole world moves on. Someone will sit with you for 2 minutes and yeah, absorb your grief, but they move on, they go about their lives, and so would you. But you have to hold that thought, hold the feelings, hold everything in while life still goes on. Unfortunately, there's no pause. So no. So if when I lost my dad, it's been over 10 years, it changed me, definitely did. And that's what grief does. It changes you as a person. But I realized that at some point I packed the feelings of grief and it turned into a monster, right? Because yeah, we deal with it in different ways and sometimes we just don't know how to deal with it. But the very nature of grief does that to you, changes you in ways that you will never be prepared for. So yes, I didn't feel like I got time and I had to move on with life. Of course, so did everyone around me. And yeah, that had its consequences.
When you say it made you, like, changed you, and then there was like a monster from it, what would be like the two things that you said would be the monsterization from grief, if that's an actual word?
Right. And I didn't even realize it. I started a new job not very long after, and I was just cold. I was a cold person. And then when people picked on me, and this is me, over 10 years later, looking in hindsight, I was like, why do they hate me? I didn't do anything. Yeah, I'm doing my job. I'm doing great results, but a lot of people just didn't like my energy. And it's very hard for us to self-reflect when you are dealing with things that you don't even know that is what is changing you. But I was cold. I was cold. I was at the time very friendly with my husband. And I just switched off.
You guys were just friends at the time.
We were friends, but he wanted more.
Okay.
We were talking and I was more like interested. But after my dad passed, I switched off. Right. So that is the monster that came out of that. But it only has taken me years after to really reflect and understand that those were the fallouts of me holding off, grieving and not being able to deal with it or not knowing what to do with my feelings and how life changed automatically. Right. So yeah, that that was a monstrosity. And with work, it got better. My interactions with people, my interpersonal skills improved over the years and, just letting things go. But yeah, there was more coming. And yeah, that's the sort of thing that will happen to you. And you'll be like, but I'm just being me. But no, something has changed and you're almost bleeding on people, but they don't know. And you don't know. So you're just walking through life, pretty much bleeding.
Some people say that sometimes when you lose someone, that it makes you understand how life is feeble. You either become very guarded or you become reckless because it's either life doesn't have meaning anymore or life has too much meaning that you want to just protect everything. What was it like for you? Which was it for you, and how did you navigate that?
That's very accurate. And I would say dealing with the loss of my dad made me guarded. Clearly, I wasn't the smiling, wanting nobody around person at the time. But I lost my sister 3 years ago. And in that phase, knowing that we were losing her because we knew, she was sick for a long time. And yeah, we saw, whether, we pray and believe that, you want to believe that the person will get better. Then she passes and boom, recklessness. Just like, I'm like, what does it even mean? So yeah, losing people or grief can have those effects. And yeah, I experienced both in different instances.
I've been thinking about this lately. I have lost a cousin, but I wasn't close to her. So it hit me because she was family, but it didn't hit me like, when someone is your OG.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had that. So I'm always out of sorts, and I've had this conversation with you. But then I think also I had someone who gave me a different perspective when I was much younger. I used to be afraid of my parents dying. And then I had a talk with a friend who at the time was like a mentor. And he said, well, dying is a cycle of life. It would happen whether you expect it or not. It's better that you embrace it and don't fear it. That when it happens, you handle it and you're always afraid of it. And I think that kind of released a hold in me. So it's not that I don't have that fear again that my parents will die, but that is going to happen, that they've lived their life. And I think also my dad says this thing. He says, they've lived their lives. They're on their way out. You are on your way in. Cherish your moment now. So I think it gives me comfort in that I know that my dad has lived his life. My mom too, although my mom is much younger, but you get, so I don't know if that released me, but then there's something I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to get recordings of my dad. I asked him to do an audio recordings and video too. The video I wouldn't share, but the audio, if with his consent, I could share those. And I asked questions. I created questions. And I think maybe other people should consider doing that. Because I know if I was to ask you now, how can we even trust our memory that would always remember the faces of our loved ones, how they talk?
Such a question. Yes. So I pride myself as someone with a very good memory. But yes, our memory is sometimes influenced by other things. So videos and audios are very powerful tools to hold on to memory that, we probably will get distorted in our mind. So I'm not the biggest video picture person, and I do take a lot of pictures. I just don't know what to do with them. Yeah, that is something that there will never be any disadvantage to, right? Making videos or having pictures and core memories of loved ones. It will change the way that people handle loss, and not that that will make it better. It's just one more tool to be able to hold on to, because that's what power grief is. Like, you're holding on to the loved one, you're holding on to the memories, you're holding on to them and everything that they were, and having pictures still or moving videos of them would just be great to revisit moments that you will never have again. Yeah.
What was the difference between losing your sister and the time you lost your dad? And the way your dad died, it was unexpected, right?
Well, just like my sister, he was ill as well. He had a cancer. My sister had cancer, but she had hers for a much longer time, over 5 years, right? So she was diagnosed and, she got treated. She had, remission. She was in remission, and then it came back more aggressively, and then boom, she was gone. My dad, his cancer was caught at the very late stage. He was older, at the time, and everything happened in a very short time. So yeah, that was more, shocking. And I guess there's no easy way to lose a loved one, but if someone walked out the door, got hit by a car, or just was in something very horrible that
Yeah.
no one expected, it's different from it being a progression to
Yeah.
their right. So you'll never be prepared, but in both situations, we had time to share with them in the last moments. Um, but my dad's was much shorter. I was much younger, and I felt like, no, I still, of course, we always feel like we need our parents, because losing a parent is like losing parts of you. They're the people that have known you all of your life. They were there when you were born, and they're there until the day that they go. And that is the cycle of life. That's how it should be. Doesn't make it easy.
Mhm.
So I'd say that was different, but I can't really say which was, more difficult, or how, I handled it. It depended on where I was. And when I lost my sister, I was pregnant with Didi. It was such a fragile place to be, because I felt helpless. I felt, like the same thing was happening again. Um, we planned so much of our lives together, right? And just me imagining that all of that will not be happening because we're losing her. It was insane. Um, yeah, so no easier one. It's just different timing, different places in life. I
Mhm.
feel like just before my sister passed, we lost my in-law as well, my sister's husband. And that wasn't easy either. It
Mhm.
wasn't easy. We were close. And at the time, we were in proxy. I mean, it was horrible the way that he went. So that was not over, right? We did have a lot of loss in that same um,
Time.
period. And so it was just too much, right? We also lost an aunt who was sick as well,
Mhm.
and all within the space of a year or two, right? So that period, I don't think anybody, you don't come back from that. You just become, the person who deals with that, but you just don't recover from all of that.
Okay. As we get older and I talk to older people, and being single, the advice that I hear is praying to find someone who will hold you when you lose a loved one. And that's like caring for you emotionally, physically, spiritually, having you in that their cocoon. What was that like for you? Did you have someone like that? And what was intimacy in those grieving periods?
Mm. Yeah, I thankfully was just so around the time I lost my in-law was when I just connected with Tony. And we had no idea that that was in the books, but yeah, that was coming just literally days away. And yeah, it was like a whole cycle, because when I lost my dad, he was there. Um, and then here we were again, losing someone else, and he was present, as well as when I lost my sister. So for me, there is a big deal about having someone, like you rightly said, that is true. Having someone, I feel like when I lost my dad, it felt lonely, because I have siblings who were married at the time, and it almost feels like they're not as hurt as you, who is all by yourself. Um, yeah, so it's different when you have someone, um, The second time around, losing my in-law, my sister, Tony was there again, but it was different because we were together at the time, at this time, and just having someone to hold your hands through all of that mess. For the longest time, when my in-law passed, I couldn't go back to the house because that was the last place I saw him.
I remember.
Tony and I saw him just before he went out the door, before, the unfortunate incident happened. So I couldn't go back to the house. Just all the flashes and just having someone there to comfort you, to just make it okay, to exist in that space that you are, which is heavy and sad. And yeah, it's nice. It's good. It's a comforting feeling. And then by the time we were losing my sister passed. Yeah, I felt like I wasn't alone because first I had baby and I had Tony, even though for the most part we were now transiting to moving over to the US. So he was out. But there's sometimes where you feel like you're going crazy because what the heck? And someone talking you through those feelings, or just being there, or just being silent. Nothing has to be said, just being there for you, right? Checking on you, checking with you how things are, how you're feeling, or just sitting by you, right? And I can't even just give that credit only to Tony. Several friends, including you, who, without them in that process, it'll definitely be much harder. And of course, as a Christian and someone who believes in God, that's something to reach, that I would always reach in times of grief. But it is hard because you are asking questions. You're asking questions like, why? Of course, why? Why does it have to be that way? And what is all of this supposed to mean for you? And why didn't they get well? Why did they go? Why did they happen? All of that stuff. So you're dealing with another kind of difficulty in the grief. Just losing your faith. I've seen that happen with lots of people. And I get it because I've been there, not once. But yeah, all of that is the mix of it. But having people, whether it's a romantic partner, a spouse, a friend, yeah, those people are key to getting through, grief and loss.
I have heard that people use different things as a form to escape. So maybe that's the point where people go into drinking, smoking, partying, sex, just as long as they don't express that. Would you say that being busy and successful helped delay your emotional healing? Or did you find a way to escape it?
Being busy is a trick. Yes, it's escapism for many things, including grief. Yes, at some point I was so busy doing so through the time where my sister was diagnosed with cancer, got treated, and was in remission, and it came back. The second time around was difficult. It was especially difficult for me because I couldn't understand why, all of that was happening. And we're close, right? She was my immediate older sister. But at some point I could feel, myself distancing the thoughts about even just getting on a call with her because it was getting difficult to even take a call from any family member, right? If someone tried to call me, my brother, my other sisters, my mom, it was scary because it felt like, oh my goodness, that could be the call, right?
Mhm.
You want to escape into different things. And I was escaping into work. Of course, I was busy, and, you know, you just don't know how to stop, right? I was busy dealing with that and another kind of loss, through that process. So it was just a lot of things. And all my mind could do at that point was just escape, bury myself in work, bury myself in everything else, but trying to reach those thoughts and those feelings that became the inevitable. So yeah, of course, as humans, we're fragile. We are, especially when you get a deep cut like that, and you never really realize it until you can't really help yourself, right? So, um,
Have you ever caught yourself preparing for loss even while things are going well? Like maybe expecting the other shoe to drop, as we all know the saying.
yeah. So as an attorney, this is something that I've always, had my head straight on, right? I remember having conversations with my dad many years before he died, maybe a year or two after I got called to the Nigerian bar, and it was always like, do you have a will? You know, and it just makes estate planning and, you know, life better for everybody else.
Mhm.
It was strange. Even my dad was a very open-minded, very enlightened person, but it was strange for him to have those conversations with me. So for me, it's always been like, yes, loss is coming, death is coming to all of us. So we might as well prepare. So for me, I have conversations with people now, and it's like, do you have life insurance?
Mhm.
Because we're not guaranteed anything, right? So yeah, I find myself preparing for that now, more so because I have a child,
Mhm.
right? So I want to make sure that if and when I go, there's comfort. Nothing will replace me because being downstairs here, having this conversation with you, she wants to be here, right? So we're tied together. She's the Velcro, the very, very, very model Velcro baby, right? So nothing will replace mom, but there can be comforts that will help her through life if I wasn't anymore. So, yes. And this is not because of loss, but because I think it's responsible. That's what we should do because we don't know. Um, but not in a crazy way. I don't get crazy with it. Like, okay, now I have to live when I'm leaving the house. Like, it's not that serious. But planning when it comes to planning and organizing life in general, especially finances and, estate. Yeah, definitely putting that thought to it. I'm hoping that I live as long as I can and spend my days with loved ones that I have. Um, but if I were, no, no more. First off, I don't want anyone, stressing about where I'm going to be buried, what needs to be done. All of that can be planned out,
Mhm.
right? So that is where I am as a person, right? And that's the advice I'll give any friend, anybody who um cares to hear, right? So it's a very uncomfortable conversation or topic for a lot of people, right?
That's true.
But people are dying, you know, young people, right? We just lost a friend, Tony's really good friend. He was sick. He has a kid, he has a young daughter, right? So the family is trying to have conversations about where he'll be buried, all of that planning and stuff. But you can just fix all of that yourself and
Mhm.
give no one the stress of having to, deal with the grief of you not being, and then, planning stuff and paying for stuff.
I
And
think it's a
and
culture
that is
thing.
very expensive.
It is very expensive. I think it's a culture thing that
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about it, we are indirectly inviting it to come into our home. So it's like superstition. If you talk about death, you're inviting death, you're opening the doorway. So we don't talk about it, we don't prepare. Like you just, farthest from the mind.
Tying superstition around it makes it easier to push
Yes, keep an
back.
arm's length.
Oh, we don't talk about it because you're inviting it.
Yeah.
But there's many conversations culturally as Nigerians and even in many other cultures
Mhm.
that, there's a lot of silence around. Finance is one of them. In
Mhm.
many households, many people never grew up having any conversations about finances. That is a conversation that should be had openly, honestly,
Mhm.
amongst members, especially, the father, mother, whatever the dynamic is, whoever runs the home, because why not, right? You shouldn't allow money, finances to control your life. You should be controlling it. And if you are in control, then you talk about it, right? So putting superstition and all those things behind it makes it, comfortable to say, as Christians, we don't talk about, but that will not be sensible.
Actually, bringing that up, I was, I would have told you about this person. She's one of the older ladies that I listen to her and I admire her kindness and her faith.
Mm.
She's my supervisor. She's in early 80s. And one day she was telling me about how she had gone and paid for her burial. She
Mm.
had set up everything, the food that would be catered, where she would be buried, the casket she wanted to be buried, the funeral home, and everything like that. It was interesting because no one had ever said anything like that to me before. And I don't even think I had thought about it that you could pre plan your exit. And then she said something similar to what you said. She didn't want to burden her loved ones. She already knows that her going will be hard for them. So she wants to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Let no one stress about it. She's still very agile. And I'm not saying, obviously, when you're in your 80s, you would know that it's coming close.
Yeah.
But then there's also that still hope of, are you ready? Are you not ready? Or maybe that's just me. Well, I don't think it's anything that I've heard any Nigerian say, and this person is not Nigerian, she's African American.
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking about the cultural differences, the implications of it, and also bringing in religion, faith. She's a very faith based person.
Mm.
She's one of the kindest supervisors I've had. So let me give you an instance. When I was going to get my license for work, she let me use her car because then I hadn't got my car. She let me use her car on my brakes to practice with her car because her car was what I was going to use for my driving test.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, she went with me to the test place and because you have to come with a licensed driver.
Yeah,
So she
remember.
was
Yeah.
she was the licensed driver. So I used her car, I
Mm-hmm.
used her insurance, I used her time, not just her time for me to do the test, but her timing, the times that I practiced with her car because I needed to get comfortable when they ask you all those preliminary questions before you actually do the test. Now we're gonna go to, well, not necessarily go to, but we're gonna talk about it. How did your marriage give to you and also take from you? And then when I say, maybe I should say marriages, because I don't know if you're comfortable talking about the first and the second.
Okay.
But yeah.
How did they give to me? That's such an important question because what is all this clamor for marriage in the first place? What is anybody really getting out of it? And for me, my idea of, coming together with someone, building a family was number one about companionship, right? So it's like, I want my person, right, to be there for me, with me, let's just wing life together. So, I mean, in my first marriage, it was disastrous from the beginning. I mean, from week one. So there wasn't much value add, and that's why obviously we're no more together. So, but in terms of the expectation from that marriage or my with my current husband is that you want someone that is loyal to you, right? That supports you, you know. So that wasn't happening there. And so here we are today. So I can say, I mean, we live in the US, you know how difficult life is here. Um, life is tough. I don't think Americans understand how hard life is in the US. Um, the silver lining is that things work, the system to a large extent works, but life is tough, and just having someone to live that through with is for me a value add, but more so in the everyday things. And this is the part of relationships that, is big conversation today. It's like all the things that need to get done. If we had to list them, I mean, it would be like an endless list. But having someone that goes through that list with you, that is the value in everyday life, knowing that you're not doing it alone. It could be as like random as putting out the trash, doing the laundry, whatever. Right. So again, I feel like I'm one of those people that narrate my life maybe out loud sometimes and in my head, but having someone to also narrate it to is quite soothing. You don't even have to have an answer. I'm just narrating it to you, right? So someone that is my sounding board is, value add for me. Also, someone to work out all of the things with finances, faith, parenting, and, when that's not the case, I just wonder because in many situations that's not the case. And I wonder, what's the point? Right? So if life is not lived on a daily basis with a person, and don't get me wrong, life can throw different dynamics and you may not be in the same place at the same time all the time. Maybe work, life is very goes in different directions, dynamic like that. So it could be that you guys may be living in two different countries, but the person is still adding to you on a day-to-day, on a daily basis. So for me, that is how, marriage, just someone that covers me in prayers. My husband is that person. Someone we can laugh and chat with or watch a movie. At the same time, we're sitting down to train our child together. And we don't have to like have all of the same ideas. I think that that's part of, the spice of life, variety. I bring my own ideas. You have your own ideas because, of course, everyone's come from a different place. Um, and yeah, that is it for me. Someone to, you know, sit and critique the food that we cook together. Someone, yeah, you spend your time with, and it feels enriching, not like draining, right? I heard something recently, and someone said a relationship either gives you weight or wings. So if for me, it started to feel like a bag of stones, like weight, yeah, that's just not what, the expectation, or that's not what I want to endure, right? Like it should give me wings. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's never going to be. But
But would it always give you wings? I also feel like some relationships, it alternates. There are some times when you feel that weight, and then there are some times when they are the wings. Because, like you said, life is not perfect. Human beings are not perfect. Sometimes you just don't have
That's
that.
that is very, very important to talk about. Now, from my perspective, I feel like you cannot be one and the other. It doesn't mean that there will never be conflict or
Mhm.
that you will always see eye to eye about everything. No. But even in conflict, even in you know, someone not being pleased with the other, you can still feel the wings.
Mhm.
Right? It takes a lot of maturity, but that is how it should be. It should not feel like weight, even when we are having a misunderstanding about something. It doesn't have to feel like weight. It doesn't have to feel like we just automatically switched off to become enemies. No, it's like we are against a problem. The problem may be because of the way we're communicating, or someone's reaction to something, or just a misunderstanding about something, or just maybe we don't agree on how we should handle something in the parenting life. It's like I shouldn't feel like it is a weight because we have that misunderstanding or difference, right? So when I speak to friends or, women in general who are dealing, with marital issues, it's like you've been carrying weight for years. And you see that I don't endorse. Because when it starts to feel like that, your life starts to deteriorate, right? It should never feel like weight. It should never, even in difficult situations, difficult moments. I'm not one who shies away from life's difficulty and suffering because that is part of
Mhm.
human experience. But in life's difficulty and suffering, I should still feel like I have my person, right?
True.
Not like my person is now a bag of cement on my back, right? So that's it for me. It's like it has to give me wings. I have to feel like, man, look at the way this guy pushes me and look at the way he approaches life.
Mhm.
And that is my own springboard, right? It should never feel like, gosh, this person is making me feel anxious or constantly anxious. We're constantly, fighting about things that don't get, resolved. It shouldn't feel like a bag of problems, like we're just dragging, trouble through life. No. That is just, and unfortunately, because we've been sold the lie that you shouldn't don't talk about your marriage, don't talk about your whatever. It's like people hold things in, but if you knew, people do. And for a long time, it impacts your health, your outlook on life. If you have children, your children.
Mhm.
Hi.
I mean, that's a whole different conversation because where we come from,
Mhm.
they will say, take it to God. And then, I mean, for the longest time, I didn't watch the movie War Room. Actually, I don't think I watched that movie because that movie annoyed me when I heard the storyline.
Out of curiosity, I just had to watch
I
to
didn't
see
watch it.
what was really in it. And it's an interesting story. But the question is, if we put a spin on it, would
What
it
would
still
happen?
be, would it
No,
still read the same?
I
Would the
think my
book?
anger really about it is that coming from where we come from,
Mhm.
being Nigerian women, is that we excuse the men and then we always pray for them like they cannot pray for themselves, like they're not full grown adults. And in that prayer, they're excused. But then who is excusing you? Who is praying for you? Who is demanding accountability? And I
Yeah.
remember a story that my auntie told me. She said she had this friend who had been married for a long time, and the husband treated her like a was a philanderer. He cheated non-stop. and she always would go to church, she would pray, she would beg and stuff like that. And then he decided to leave her.
Mm.
So she went on her knees and was begging him. And while she was begging him, she then started listing all the things that she had sacrificed in order to maintain the marriage and maintain them. And the man turned to her and said, "But did I ever ask you to do any of those?"
Which is a fair question.
It is, but then that was like the reveal for her. It was like in something went into lock. You know when like the lock, like the key locks, like it just fits instantly,
Mhm.
and your head just resets.
Yeah.
That was what reset her. And then she picked herself up, and then she just went and packed her things and left the house. And that was when she went on a journey to find herself again and start living for herself. And she then realized that she found who she was. That's why I like talking to my older aunties and uncles and stuff, and I like hearing their experiences because you hear their pain, you hear their resentment, you also hear their joy and their sacrifices. I had an auntie who had a great job offer in a different state, but then didn't go because of her husband. Until today, she regrets it.
Yeah.
And those conversations come up, and everybody just says, "Go and pray for him." And yes, prayer does work, but I just feel it covers a multitude of sins and accountability.
So yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, where we come from, Nigeria, it's like marriage is more of a babysitting situation, right? It's like, for lack of a better way to describe it, that is it. Like in many cases, the woman is the everything, right? And and when there's a breakdown, she's the one to fix it. So yes, you will be encouraged, churches, whatever, spiritual leaders will always encourage you to pray for your husband and, persevere in all of your suffering. And I can tell you for free that I had that same experience, being told to pray and just believe. And I was that person for a very short time. But the thing about me that I really like is that I've learned to fail fast. So if I'm failing at something, it's like I need to fail fast and be done with the failure and move on. So I was doing that for a very short time. And one day I snapped. I was very upset. And that was the day I decided that I was going to leave. It was like, nah, I didn't do anything, right? I shouldn't have to pay for the sins of another. I shouldn't have to suffer so much. I mean, and it was so crazy because this was in the first year of being married. People have these stories about, much, longer term marriages. So yeah, it just is a cultural dynamic that I'm hoping and I'm praying for the sake of our children that it changes because it's a lot of weight for women, right? Women have lost their lives, their 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 everything to these institutions that they commit themselves to, right? It's funny because I'm also learning that it applies in many other cultures. It's also here very much amongst all the demography, any race, any um social economic class. It exists. Women are suffering, women are silenced, women are, put through the ringer. But I think that naming and shaming these problems is helping the younger generation
Mhm.
to understand how to approach it and to understand the expectations you need to have of yourself first and of anybody that you choose to do life with, to join your life with. Um, but I like very much how younger women are very certain about what they want or what they don't want. And I feel like it should become the default to say, no, I don't want to be in this until you understand that there's going to be value for you. So back to your question, we should know what the value is going to be in getting together with a man before
And
we
that's
get,
something that they didn't teach us growing up.
oh no,
Sadly, they didn't teach girls. Maybe
I
they
don't
taught
think
boys, but
that,
they didn't teach girls that growing up.
hmm, I don't think that that was, the preparation for life for girls is usually one of duty,
Mm-hmm.
right? You are taught to be dutiful, you become very,
Submissive,
yes. And the second one is don't
wait for
get
the man to
pregnant.
pick you up.
Don't
Because you
get
have to
pregnant.
be chosen now. You cannot
Yes,
choose.
you
Wait for the
have to
man to choose you.
you have, so you prepare, all your life to be chosen. And boom, you know, look at what is choosing you. In most
Look
cases,
at always choose me. I'm
in most
sorry, that's
cases,
hilarious.
yeah, it is disastrous to see that, bright, well-rounded women end up in the worst situations, just because the expectation is never really clear. It's like, I want to be, we're going to have a family. Yeah, we're going to live here and this is how we do things. There's a lot of logistics that you can understand about where you're going with a relationship. But the nuance about emotional responsibility, accountability, fidelity is not really understood until you live with this person. And what you learn, what I've learned from being married is that a person that you are in close proximity with like that, in terms of life, can easily touch your most sensitive spots. So this is someone that is going to definitely press all your buttons, right?
And affect the quality of your life.
Yeah. So that expectation needs to be understood. And when it's not getting met, what do we do? Those are not things that we know how to articulate and how to really fix before, but it is happening now. And it is becoming more clear that you have to let me know what this is going to be. I don't think that, we should just give away, you give into becoming because that's the social expectation.
Have your expectations of a partner now changed after everything you've been through?
Yeah, and I think that they change it it is refined every day, as I grow older, as I learn
Mhm.
more about myself, as I learn more about my spouse, my expectations are definitely being refined. And I like it because, rigidity is not something that is helpful to having a successful relationship, right? Even in a platonic situation, a friend, like I have to be realistic about my expectations about you, right? Because between you and I, we both have kids, right? To even speak on the phone, like, you know what I'm saying? So
I
the
do.
expectation has to be shaped by what is real, right? So yes, I had my expectations before, and now even it's more glaring what they should be and how they should be done, right?
Mm.
So yes, of course, my expectations have changed. They've improved, I would say, right? Because perspective is always a blessing. When you have the perspective of the person that you've known. Tony and I have been friends for over 10 years. We were friends for over 10 years, or even 13 years before we married. But we're just now learning more and more about ourselves.
So, how do you make peace with conversations you would never have? So, conversations with your loved ones, your father, your sister, and closure with your ex. Because
Mm.
I don't think you would want to have, I don't know, am I assuming that you'd want to have a conversation with your ex
Oh,
anytime?
definitely not having a
Okay, so how
conversation.
do you make it
Um,
convers
so for my loved ones, my dad, my sister, everyone else that we've lost along the way, you know, I really hold their memory very dear to my heart. I revisit the essence that I know that they were. Um, I think since my dad passed, hmm, the values that growing up, it's just your family, right? It's just you guys doing stuff. This is how we do our lives. But those values that, were core to my dad became the forefront of my life, right? So for me, that has been the best way and the closest way to feel even closer to him every day. And then for my sister, there's just so much that we shared from music to fashion to, the causes that were central to her life. Those things have become central to my life and, the person that I am. So it's like I add them as badges to me. And as I go along, I'm paying all of the respect and holding them as their, and just sometimes I'm in a situation or I'm faced with a thought or a decision and I think about them and how what they may have said to me or how they would have handled it. And that's how I make, some some decisions. It's like putting them, even when I feel them, I feel their presence. I always feel from when my dad passed, it's like I had constant dreams of him telling me that he was here. He was watching me, he was there, he was, same with my sister. So I feel them, I feel their energy, and I hold on to it. I hold on to everything that is them.
Hmm, okay. I mean, I was going to ask you how the people you've lost has shaped the way you show up for other people. But I think,
Oh, we can answer that. I would like to answer that, but
okay,
let me
yeah.
answer the question about conversations with my ex. So that was a different kind of loss that caught deep because I was mourning, grieving the loss of that marriage and of that relationship while the person still is alive. So that's even, I think that's worse.
Mm-hmm.
That's
What could
because
have been?
what could have been, and then they're there, but you can never have what you wanted or what you imagined was going to be with them. So yeah, but I make peace by, going through it again, introspecting. Again, I put the spotlight on me, nothing about him because he's who he is, and I can't change that. It's like me, what I was in that situation, how it impacted my life. And there are questions I would have liked to have answers to. I just, tell myself that I don't need to know them. I don't need to, and I know that I will never have those answers, and that's okay. Right. So, but it's all about becoming a better person out of that experience. And it taught me a lot of things, humility, accountability, fidelity, everything. So I take all of that as good. And the things that will never be. I think that there's better things out there for me. And that's key for me. It's like there's always better. So I'm not one of those people that subscribe to there is a person for you. There's many people. It could be, any of those fantastic human beings out of the billions of people on planet Earth. So if it didn't work out here, it's sad and, ooh, undoing your life with someone is impossible, right? Good enough, we didn't have any kids or much to undo, but it's still a lot,
Mhm.
right? So you take all of that, you take the lesson, the life lessons and the strength. especially that you garner from dealing with that kind of situation, and then you move forward without understanding why it happened, but you have to make peace with the fact that that happened.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Sifying your raising brow. Please, I'm shy. Don't recognize me. Thank you. Thank you.
So what was the last question that you were trying to ask?
I was gonna say, how have the people you've lost shaped the way you show up for the people still here? But we have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Would you be able to answer that in 1 minute?
No, I have a lot to say about that.
You want to shrink it?
I think that for me, like I said earlier, just realizing that every day is a blessing. I make it a habit to, just not avoid, but not live in conflict with myself and with others, right? I'm not saying I'm going to be friends with everyone, but even when a friendship or relationship is ending, I make my peace with it and move on, right? Don't leave, things hanging in between. So, but I hold the people that are closest to me so dearly, right? And I show up for them in the most aggressive, best way because today is the day that we have, right? Tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much, Ineze, for joining us. You have been amazing, especially because we are 3 hours apart.
Oh
You
my
have a daughter, I have a son who are besties, but then it's double
God, not
work
having it
trying
today.
to it's double work trying to do this, especially when they want to join us in it.
Yeah.
So thank you. And also I want to say thank you to your husband for helping you man her while you're doing this, and my mom for watching
Helping.
my son
It's not
to give us
helping.
this time. I beg, I
It's
beg, I
his
beg. Give
child.
gratitude where gratitude is deserved.
Oh yeah, of course. And he'll
So
hear,
thank you,
I'll tell
Tony. Thank you,
him.
Tony. I really appreciate. Well, thank you for, staying with us till the end. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I would like to hear your thoughts and your experiences if you've navigated this and what it was like for you. So, thank you and bye bye. Okay.